While we're on the topic of Donald Trump, let's just remind people who Republicans are lining up behind, Republican office holders. He just released a statement about the death of General Colin Powell, who died. We should say he was fighting cancer and Parkinson's, but his death was something of a surprise. He and his wife, Alma, although they were both vaccinated, tested positive for COVID, and Alma's okay, but Colin Powell regrettably died because he had these problems with underlying conditions and a compromised immune system. That said, here is what Donald Trump had to say about this decorated, trailblazing Vietnam War veteran and general. Quote, "Wonderful to see Colin Powell, who made big mistakes on Iraq and famously so-called weapons of mass destruction, be treated in death so beautifully by the fake news media. Hope that happens to me someday. He was a classic rhino, Republican in name only, if even that, always being the first to attack other Republicans. He made plenty of mistakes. But anyway, may he rest in peace." And that was immediately followed by a link to donate money to Donald Trump. It's hardly the first time that Trump has acted this way. He did it to John Dingell. He did it to John McCain. It's still shocking that Republicans are lined up behind this guy.
It is still shocking. And, you know, at the end of the day, these statements over and over again, it all comes back to himself. He points to himself and the fake news media over and over again. And it is still equally shocking. And I guess we shouldn't really expect Republicans at this point to really criticize him over something like this. But, you know, Liz Cheney and I think a few others did come out. But I think we're not going to see top Republicans
Is this shocking, though?
it.
Because I don't think anything about this is shocking. I mean, Colin Powell...
Shocking, but not surprising.
Yeah.
That's how I...
I mean, Colin Powell is someone who dedicated his entire life to serving others. Donald Trump is someone who has dedicated his life to serving himself. I mean, Colin Powell was the first black chief of staff. Donald Trump is the first twice impeached president. I mean, I don't want to attack Donald Trump personally because that takes it down to his level, but he talked about being remembered. He will be remembered as one of the most graceless people who has ever graced this country. Colin Powell is anything but.
And it's actually a political gift for Democrats. Every time he does this, he reminds people who revolted from the Republican Party, the suburban, the educated, the women voters who used to be so important to our coalition, who now have run very far away. Every time he does this, every time he invokes racial undertones of some of his statements, they go further and further away. So I'm sure, you know, while Democrats are upset that he did this, it's also, once again, another gift.
It is a gift. Republican Liz Cheney, as you note, one of the few Republicans to speak out about this, calling this in a Wyoming newspaper, saying Trump's comments were pathetic garbage. But again, there's a very hotly contested gubernatorial race in Virginia right now. And I'm sure Glenn Youngkin, the Republican nominee, who put out a very nice statement about Colin Powell, is going to be asked, well, what about this that the leader of your party said? What about this? What about this?
Well, and two thoughts on this. So with respect to the Virginia governor race, Glenn Youngkin is already on record saying that he would vote and he would support Donald Trump if he was the nominee in 2024. So I think that lets you know where Glenn Youngkin stands as it relates to Trump, and that's after the insurrection. With respect to Colin Powell, as you know, I work in my day job at a national security and defense think tank, and Colin Powell has inspired generations of national security, defense, and foreign policy leaders. And so I just hope, as you know, the continuing conversation over the legacy that he leaves, the more important piece is the legacy that he has left in terms of his lessons of leadership, his inspiration to generations of a more diverse representation in the national security and defense community.
And we should just remind people, Trump didn't have to put out a statement about Colin Powell. Obviously, they didn't like each other. Obviously, Colin Powell endorsed Hillary Clinton in 16 and endorsed Joe Biden in 20. Obviously, you know, they were not each other's favorite. He could have kept quiet.
He doesn't have a Twitter account anymore, but he still clearly likes to be part of the conversation, and he's going to keep putting out these statements. And as we mentioned, there's a reason why Terry McAuliffe in Virginia is continuing to tie his Republican opponent to Donald Trump. The more he keeps putting out these statements, the more perhaps beneficial that strategy could be.
Do you think it actually works, though? Do you think the idea of trying to tie Glenn Youngkin, the Republican gubernatorial nominee in Virginia, to Donald Trump, do you think that works on suburban voters, or do people think it's not the same person?
I do. I think it works in Northern Virginia. I think, you know, in Southern Virginia, the Richmond area, I think it's a little more complicated. But, you know, now Virginia has become basically Northern Virginia, and so that's the makeup. And so I think that's why you're starting to see this distance put in the poll numbers.
Do you?
I don't think it works when Donald Trump is off the stage. But when you haven't seen Donald Trump in a few weeks, and Glenn Youngkin does not present as a Donald Trump type person, but when Donald Trump inserts himself in this and you remind him and you see him every day, it's going to stick a lot more. And so I'm sure Glenn Youngkin would love if Donald Trump would just for the next 2 or 3 weeks just shut up.
No chance.
It was interesting, though. There was an interview where Senator Cassidy, I think it was, a Republican of Louisiana, said he would not want Donald Trump to be the nominee. He would not support him. But yet, at the same time, there was a new poll I just saw out earlier today showing a significant amount, and in fact, a higher percentage than just a few months ago of the Republican voters want Trump to run for president in 2024.
Well, look, he has a popularity with the Republican Party. And so in our Virginia governor's race, the candidate, Glenn Youngkin, he has said he will support Donald Trump in 2024. He has aligned himself with the anti-masking, anti-vaccine requirement provisions that have been in place. And Virginia, as a resident there, it's been a pretty good place to ride out the pandemic. It's been a pretty safe place. The policies that have been in place have made families feel pretty comfortable in living throughout the pandemic.
You have a Democratic governor.
So, we have a Democratic governor right now. And so Terry McAuliffe has said that he would continue those policies. So I think when it comes to actual policies, that's what Virginia voters are looking for when it comes to that race.
Speaking of races, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio dodged questions today about whether or not he's going to run for governor of New York State. He's been putting this out there. You might remember he also ran for president. That didn't go so well. According to polls, only 1 in 4 New York voters view him favorably. Do you think he's going to run?
I'm sure he can run, but Cuomo has better poll numbers than de Blasio. I wish him the best. Kyrie will probably play before he wins.
What about you? Do you think de Blasio has any shot?
Yeah, but look, I think what's motivating him is his rivalry with Cuomo. If there are two politicians who hate each other more, I don't know who they are. And so I think he wants him he's probably motivated just kind of to one up his.
I see. So Andrew Cuomo.
Yes.
Was forced to resign, and now I'm going to take it, kind of thing. It's not that petty, is it really?
Well, poll numbers didn't really even hold him back from jumping into the presidential race. We forget at this point, but he ran for president at one point, even though I think at best he was polling at 1% in the Democratic primary.
I don't even think that. I think that was an inflated percentage that you just gave. Thanks, one and all. Really appreciate it.